Okay, terrific. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike. Really happy to have you here. And I just want to give you a brief introduction here before Mike gets started. So Mike is the Southwest Regional, Washington Regional Director of the Northwest Agriculture Business Center, and he supports the Southwest Washington Growers Cooperative. He provides business development and expansion resources and hands-on technical support to farmers and ag-related business. And he has over 30 years experience in this realm in leadership roles, and is just a wonderful resource for all of us. So today he's going to talk about the inextricable link between sustainable farm economies, flood reduction, and habitat restoration. And I'm really looking forward to this presentation, Mike. So go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. And please pardon me for just one moment. I have several screens in front of me.
Yeah, let's get you
I cannot. I'm sorry?
We'll get you oriented. So here's what's one funky thing about the webinar feature here is once you become the presenter, it's hard to actually see your screen, your slides. So my suggestion for you is to have, right now we're seeing your desktop, and right now the PowerPoint kind of went away. There is a feature where you can see what the audience sees, but I can also narrate that. My suggestion is to have the GoTo app side by side with your PowerPoint if that's possible.
Let's see if I can manage that. Okay, bear with me for one moment, please.
Not a problem.
I am looking for that attendee view. Let's try that. No go. Nope. Nope. I'm struggling just a hair. All right.
Okay, so Michael, if you want to go ahead, we'll turn you back on, your webcam back on. You still are the presenter. Right now, you do not have anything that you've shared yet. It looks like the sharing tab of that toolbar webinar app has for you, the little gray tabs up there. Do you see that? There's a sharing option.
Thank you.
And when you click on that, the down arrow there, there's a show application. Now, if you want to actually click the little down arrow next to the word application, that'll actually allow you to select what it is you want us to see. So you can specifically select the PowerPoint. And worst case scenario, I can make myself the presenter while you speak, and I can advance the slides for you if that's helpful.
Bear with me for just one moment. I do not see that. I am in sharing. I got show screen, stop showing screen.
Yes, if you click show screen, there's like a little tiny down arrow that you can click, and that will allow you to choose which screen or which browser or which PowerPoint to show.
This is unfortunate. I didn't have this issue when I first rolled through with the group. So my sincere apologies for struggling.
I can see your screen now. It's your desktop. And so I wonder if you were to open up that PowerPoint so that it shows, there you go. Yep, we can see it. You may need to, right now I believe it's in the presenter mode, right? Where it's showing what you see as the presenter. Is there a way to make that so that it's just the audience view? But we can see that. Again, we can still see your screen, so that's good. Thanks, everyone. This is the GoToWebinar platform, I think, is really a powerful tool, but there's a lot of pieces that it takes some time to get used to, especially when you're in presentation mode. There's some features you may not be aware of that you don't see. Okay, good. We see that.
How's that?
Oh, I
No?
wonder if it's because you're in a dual monitor situation. So for some reason it's show, oh, we see it. Great. It looks like it's filled the screen. It's there. Yay.
All
Let's
right,
just,
I'm not going to touch. I'm not
yeah,
going to
so
touch
maybe just
anything.
touch your like advanced arrow and I'll make sure I'll keep in tabs on whether or not it's advancing or not. So perfect. We got you going, Mike. Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your patience as I roll through that. As Linda was kind enough to introduce me, my name is Mike Peroni. I work for the Northwest Agriculture Business Center. And at the end of the day, in the fewest possible words, we provide business technical services to agricultural enterprise. So I do write business plans and feasibility studies. We provide access to capital through grant writing services. But one of the most fun things about working with NABC is we have the capacity to continue with some of these projects. So we don't just write a grant, the grant's successful and we walk away, but we're also there to help individuals and groups of farmers implement. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. The name of this presentation is Floodfish Farms and the Inextricable Link. And that's a term that has almost been batted around jokingly with Oxbow Farm, I heard mentioned earlier, with one of their early architects, just recognizing that those three things in terms of policy and conversation, infrastructural development, even public health and public safety are inextricably linked. So I'm going to set about today to just provide some examples of that. Another set of principles I've been operating from recently is one, let's establish a core agreement. And I think the agreement for us moving forward is that these things are inextricably linked. I would imagine your experience in conservation, you know this already. The second point is to manage expectations. So there's nothing in this PowerPoint that will allow you to change the world, but I'm very hopeful that through relaying a story and using a classic story arc, that I'll be able to do a couple things. One of which is provide some examples of how conservation districts and others can partner to affect real change on all of these issues, floods, fish, and farms. And also to maybe inspire a little bit of creativity in the way you think about the potential to identify and implement some of these opportunities. So this first slide is that's my exit. That's exit 77, I-5 South. This would have been on or around December 3rd of 2007 when record rainfall hit the Willapa Hills. And there's estimated that between 14 and 20 inches of rain fell in what they refer to as a superstorm. I could go into great detail, but let me just say that not in either written or oral history has an event like this ever taken place in the Chehalis Basin. So if you're not familiar, exit 77 is just outside Chehalis. And today we will be focused on examples of projects happening within the Chehalis Basin. Check me out, advancing slides. This is a picture. Actually, you can see my farm here. This
Mike,
would
so
have
it
been.
does look like the slides hadn't, oh, now it is. It's just a little delayed. So that's just me, and you'll notice as attendees that you might have a slight delay in slide advancement, but it worked. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, quite all right. Thank you very much. Again, this is just an example of the extent of what happened here. You know, financial losses as a result of this flood. 1 year later, residential losses were estimated at or around $192 million. Business losses for excluding what they refer to as major stores, 26 million 5. Major business losses in the Chehalis Basin, just over $93 million. and agriculture and farm losses of approaching $5 million as a result of this event. This, assuming the slide has advanced, this is not necessarily my walk-in cooler that landed on top of a car as a result of that flood. There's no actual proof that that's my walk-in cooler, but later after this event, there was we did get a backhoe to hook onto that and bring it back to the farm. The Chehalis Basin, if you're not familiar, drains about 2,600 square miles on the coast of Washington here. It empties into Grays Harbor. It's an important shellfish area, and more than 80% of this watershed is forested, and another 10% is dedicated to agriculture. Much of the land adjacent to the Chehalis River and its tributaries is either forestry or agriculture, with some few examples of residential and urban use. As a result of ongoing flooding, perennial flooding issues, especially in Centralia and Chehalis, you may remember in that 2007 event, I-5 was closed, interstate commerce was affected. I'm sure you're all familiar with the laundry list of reasons that in 2016, the Washington legislature created the Office of the Chehalis Basin, which is housed within the Department of Ecology. And that established the Chehalis Basin Board. The Office of the Chehalis Basin administers funding, works closely with the Chehalis Basin Board to aggressively pursue implementation of the Chehalis Basin strategy. You know, it's unlikely there's any reason to go into any great detail around that Chehalis Basin strategy. I'm not the perfect individual to answer your questions, but of course I'm hopeful that a link has been provided in the chat, or will be provided in the chat, where you can get more information. The Chehalis Basin, the Office of the Chehalis Basin, oversees a 7-member board, and that board has representatives from the Chehalis Basin Flood Authority, Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation, as well as the Quinault Indian Nation. Also has agricultural, environmental, and economic interests are represented there. And there are 5 non-voting board members that represent various state agencies. You can visit their website for more information, but they are a governing body that is working hard to develop a comprehensive mitigation and flood mitigation and environmental enhancement projects. I'm sure you're familiar. Some of these are very ambitious. They range from a very modest 250 nautical miles of river all the way up to almost 500,000. I wanted to. This next picture is really where the rubber meets the road. This is an excellent example. This is a local grange. This is the Office of the Chehalis Basin having one of their meetings. They did a significant amount of outreach. I know that regional conservation districts also hosted some of these and provided opportunities for stakeholder engagement. Because again, if you are going to talk about flooding, you're going to talk about environmental enhancement, and if you're going to talk about environmental enhancement, you're going to end up speaking with farmers and foresters. And this kind of relationship building, this one-on-one, these visits to the Grange, I have enjoyed myself at these, and I really think that they're an excellent trust building exercise, outside of being an incredible opportunity to share and disseminate information and get input from the community of stakeholders. One of the most ambitious documents provided by the Chehalis Basin Board and the Office of the Chehalis Basin is their Aquatic Species Restoration Project. which again is a plan for community and ecological resiliency, huge amount of engagement. I know that this is also playing out with the help and collaboration of the conservation districts in terms of individual stakeholder engagement, sharing information, sharing specific project information. So really sort of, this is like that academic signpost and comprehensive data that sets the stage for that one-on-one relationship building to establish that inextricable link between regional farm economies and the health and well-being of our river systems. I'm still here, just turning the page. You know, obviously fish are an important part historically. They have cultural significance. Salmon are nothing short of iconic in the Northwest. According to a 2016 report, the Chehalis Basin historically saw an average of 778,000 steelhead, coho, and chinook swimming upstream each year. That number fell to an estimated 111,000 in 2003 and 75,500 in 2016. It's estimated by some that without restoration, these numbers could drop to as low as 40,000. And of those species affected, the steelhead, coho, and chinook, the spring chinook are the most threatened. In 2016, it's estimated that only 1,500 returned, and further projected that without aid, that number could actually fall all the way down to 200. Currently, none of these salmon runs in the Chehalis Basin have been designated for protection under the Endangered Species Act, or I should be careful with that, as of writing my notes. But local officials are concerned that the loss of fish without protection may come too late. I am certainly not here to talk about, I think the polite term is water retention facilities, but I wanted to show this slide for a couple reasons. This is really sort of in my backyard. I am part of a community that would be affected by this and have been party to conversations on both sides of a project that would be as impactful as water retention. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the difficult job that Conservation District employees have in dealing what I have come to refer to as spirited stakeholders. You saw the flood pictures that I shared earlier. Myself and my family are victims of the 2007 flooding. And so I want to assure you that these conversations are not just financial, they are not just about enhancement, but they are also, they are culturally charged and they are emotionally charged as a result of people's experience. So I do not envy the position of some of the conservation districts when it comes to developing these relationships. And as a member of the communities affected, I want to acknowledge the difficulty of that work. One alternative to these more impactful projects is the location of, I've gone ahead and forgotten the term, but it's really woody debris placed in these rivers and waterways and backflows of rivers and tributaries within the Chehalis Basin. Again, this is another place where I know from experience the conservation districts are really involved. An excellent example, if you're going to place this woody debris, in many cases, I know that you know already, you will be talking to the agricultural community in terms of access or even the authority to place some of these projects. to do the riparian enhancement, the Krebs project, another excellent example of where these things really all come together: flooding, habitat enhancement, and farming. And so myriad alternatives to the impactful nature of flood or water retention facilities. This is a quote. The Wade conference was kind enough to offer some training on presentation. So you probably gleaned by now, I am not a professional PowerPoint presenter, but this is an excellent quote that I drew from the Chehalis Basin Board that recognizes that a sustainable agricultural sector in the Chehalis River Basin is inextricably linked to the long-term success of the Chehalis Basin Strategy's mission of aggressively pursuing flood damage reduction and habitat restoration actions within the basin. It goes on to say that farmland and the farming economy supported by that farmland in Lewis, Grays Harbor, and Thurston counties are both significantly affected by catastrophic flooding and uniquely situated to help address fish challenges in the basin. I do not think I could have said this better myself. And again, just it has been a pleasure to be in my position to represent the agricultural business interests within the Chehalis Basin, and also to recognize that there are agencies, entities, and individuals that acknowledge and recognize the importance of this inextricable link moving forward on any one of these three issues. If you are not familiar with the Boistfort Valley, it is an area of historic and ongoing agricultural significance. If you visit, you can see the Claber Hop Yard, which at one time was the largest hop yard in the country. Fun aside, or I guess I don't know if you could refer to it as fun, but the owner of that hop yard, the original owner, perished in the Titanic. That hop yard was located on 120 acres that's flat as a pool table there by the Boistfort School, and you can come out and see that originally. It's currently been planted to blueberries. You can see in this picture toward the left, that's Boffaw Peak, about 300,000 feet, and the origins of Stillman Creek, one of the tributaries to the South Fork of the Chehalis, begins up there. There are several farms operating in the Boistfort Valley and in the Chehalis Basin. This is an example of the diverse row crop operations that operate there. We have several that you might recognize. Boistfort Valley Farm, Newaukum Valley Farm operates in the Chehalis Basin, as well as several in the Rochester area that you'll meet at any of the Olympia or Seattle farmers markets. The Boistfort Valley in particular, as well as areas down around Montesino and Elma, also have a significant history in the production of commodities crops. Here you see a crop of barley, which we'll talk about a little bit more here in a minute. But I want to touch on the history of the Chehalis Basin in producing crops for processing, specifically for National Frozen Foods, and before that, National Frozen Foods and Simons. Simons went bankrupt in 2008, and National Frozen Foods stopped issuing contracts for vegetables grown on the west side of Washington in 2018. So hundreds of acres in the Chehalis Valley and Chehalis Basin that had for generations grown these processing crops no longer had that opportunity. As a result, some of these spirited stakeholders went up and visited the Skagit Valley, came back down to Chehalis, and I think the question was something along the lines of, why can't we do that? And as a result, you see several of these fellows here, Randy Mueller from the Port of Chehalis, Stephen Bramwell from WSU Thurston County Extension, Dave Fenn, who's a third-generation farmer here in Boisfort, Jay Gordon, others that you might recognize, were able to enlist the help of NABC, and they had identified a small grains market. They wanted to build out a small grains economy in Western Washington. They enlisted the help of NABC, and largely why I'm here in the first place, and formed a farmer-owned cooperative. So NABC helped them incorporate. The cooperative was incorporated in 2019. I think the original roster, the charter members, the original issuance of common stock, we had 5 members. As of today, there are 32 active members within the cooperative. They represent 5 counties, and the cooperative includes the Southwest Washington Food Hub, as well as the Southwest Washington Grain Project. So this aggregate model, the cooperative model, is one solution to those issues that threaten agriculture in Western Washington. My early engagement was a result of the support of NABC, but also significant support from the Office of the Chehalis Basin, who brought NABC into the conversation, having recognized this inextricable link and connected the dots between spirited stakeholders that have economic and market opportunity and spirited stakeholders that are losing economic opportunity. So it's been delightful to be drug along through this process and be able to offer some support to develop this cooperative. The Southwest Washington Food Hub has enormous support, continued support from the Northwest Ag Business Center, as well as WSU's Thurston County Extension and the Thurston County EDC. I heard it mentioned several times in the presentation prior to mine about partnership, and I cannot express how important developing, nurturing, and providing opportunity for and within these partnerships is to get these ventures off the ground. The Food Hub will continue to require subsidy for the foreseeable future, but you'll see here in a minute that it has definitely enjoyed some early successes. There are, of the 32 members, off the top of my head, I think that 23 of the co-op members are involved directly in that Food Hub enterprise. And there's even some crossover between the Grain Project and the Food Hub growers. Here's just a great picture of the first delivery. You know, this Food Hub not only provides economic opportunity, but it's new, it's fun. I think the growers are enjoying it. The stakeholders are engaged. They're engaged in the cooperative process. They're engaged in developing policy, and they're engaged in conversation. So again, hearkening back to the previous presentation and some questions around that engagement, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of enthusiasm within these cooperative models, within the Food Hub models. Just excellent opportunity to move forward with conservation districts and other partners. One of the first successes of the Southwest Washington Food Hub was developing a relationship with Pacific Mountain Workforce Development Council, who had won a grant to provide COVID relief for families that had been affected by COVID-19, specific to employment, yet taking a holistic approach. They worked with the Food Hub to provide weekly deliveries of what we referred to as training materials. And those training materials were delivered along with resources to help people learn how to cook, prepare, and preserve foods. There were a series of chef videos that went along with those. The Food Hub was very happy to step in and provide that product that was really the foundation on which early commerce was built. And not only Pack Mountain, but the recipients were delighted to get that product. And I just adore the pictures that we got and the stories that we heard from these recipients throughout that project were just so heartwarming. The other entity operating within the cooperative
It looks like his connection may have paused a little bit. Steph, I'm wondering if we could, Mike, if you could maybe turn off your camera. Sometimes that's a bandwidth issue where we can't hear you because it's too many cameras going on.
And hopefully you can hear us.
Yes, hopefully he can hear us. Those were really good stories. So Michael, I'm gonna go ahead and send you a quick chat too, just to make sure. He might have popped out here for a second. All right, does look like he must have lost connection, unfortunately, with his camera. However, it is showing that. I guess in the meantime, folks, while hopefully we're able to, maybe Stephanie in the background, if you're willing to send him a message to his email, that would be fabulous. While we're waiting to get him back on there, I've been really finding in my own district's region the use of the Food Hub model. We have an up and coming, has been going for a couple of years now, the Whidbey Island Food Hub, Whidbey Island Grown Food Hub, as a result of a cooperative model. And so hearing Michael presenting about that and the successes of that in his area with the help of NABC, they have been an absolute partner in the Whidbey Island Grown's Food Hub development here on Whidbey Island as well. I'm curious, for those of you who are in the audience right now, who may have some experience working with or helping support the creation of cooperatives, if you're willing to speak up. Oh, looks like we might have Michael back. That's good. I don't know if he realizes he's not being heard. So we'll see if we can figure that out. Hey, Michael, can you hear me?
funding from local businesses and private. Yes.
Okay, for some reason, your internet connectivity cut out for just a second. So we lost a little bit of what you were sharing, just a brief bit. What we remember last seeing was the slide of them stirring the pot. And I'm wondering if you're willing to just go back to that slide and kind of share what you had shared. I'm sorry to have interrupted, but it looks like for just a brief bit, we lost you.
No, I'm absolutely willing, and thank you for accommodating my rural internet.
Oh, that's okay. I'm a rural internet person too, so I get it. All right, back to you.
Mike, you might want to turn off your video of yourself if you can. I don't know if you can do that, but that might help give you some more bandwidth.
And I can do that too, Mike, if you're okay with that.
Oh, please do. I am because everything's working. I'm quite afraid to touch any buttons right now.
It's okay. We can hear you. It's great. Doesn't seem to be any kind of in and out. Go ahead and yeah, resume. Sorry about that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I closed out these two slides by just relaying how heartwarming it was to receive photographs and comments from the recipients of these food assistance boxes, which were provided as a result of our partnership with Pacific Mountain Workforce Development Council.
Excellent.
And then moved on to, I know I love a good CAD drawing. I recognize not everybody does, but the other entity operating within the Southwest Washington Growers Cooperative is the Grain Project. And, you know, again, referring back to the presentation prior that, you know, talked about partnerships, none of this would be possible without partnership. The regional producers, as a result of losing economic opportunity when Simon's was bankrupt, National Frozen Foods stopped with contracts, recognized the production of small grains, specifically malting barley, as a viable alternative to producing those processing crops. Somehow, local producers ended up in a van with Randy Mueller from the Port of Chehalis, Stephen Bramwell from WSU, Aslan Mead from Thurston EDC, and they and others went up and toured the Skagit Valley and some of the projects that were ongoing up there. The overwhelming question that they left that with is why can't we do that too? And so they did. The Port of Chehalis offered property to build out this project. Stephen Bramwell at WSU Thurston County Extension provided an enormous amount of data in the form of survey work to regional producers and buyers. The Lewis County Commissioners provided $800,000 in distressed counties funds for the installation of a rail spur. And I worked with the Port of Chehalis and others to secure grant monies for early planning work. So the project has a complete set of plans, a comprehensive site plan for 8.2 acres of Port of Chehalis property, as well as phased construction planning, geological surveys, engineers reports. Much of that work has been done. And as a result of all that hard work, we enjoyed a major success by having this project funded through a capital budget request in this biennium. So we are currently working to refine construction plans and applying for EDA CARES money to address those issues outside the scope of that capital budget request. If you work with ag, you know these farmers are a can-do lot. So in 2020, we had signed agreements with Great Western Malting to produce 800 metric tons of malting barley, and we had no way of moving that from local producers' trucks into rail cars. We'd identified the equipment, we understood what we needed. And we set about with a very grassroots fundraising campaign to purchase what's referred to as a grain belt. The specs around malting barley are very strict. Malting barley is all about germination, and for malting barley to germinate, it has to be unbroken, unskinned, and needs to be handled very gently. So what you're seeing here is that original grain group and a few others when that grain belt showed up on site. The Lewis County Farm Bureau contributed significantly, as well as the Northwest Farm Credit Services, Country Financial, Office of the Chehalis Basin was very supportive, as well as local businesses and some private individuals. So once we had all the funding necessary, then the question was, you know, my goodness, you know, who owns this? We had a fledgling cooperative. It had been incorporated for a few months. And the obvious choice was the Lewis Conservation District. They already own equipment and lease it out to farmers, but an excellent opportunity for the Conservation District to continue to support regional producers and specifically to put a contract in place to purchase this equipment, and then a lease agreement in place to lease it to the growers cooperative. So an excellent example of opportunity for intersection there. In July of 2020, we successfully transloaded grain from trucks into cars. Just incredibly exciting. Here you see Valley Agronomics that provided some labor and use of equipment. You can see the rail spur in the background built with Lewis County's distressed counties funds. WSU was involved. Oregon State University's Pat Hayes as a breeder for malting barley was involved. The Northwest Ag Business Center was there along the way. Great Western Malting as a buyer and partner provided a lot of support to the project. The Port of Chehalis, the Growers Cooperative. Again, those partnerships, without those partnerships, none of this would have been possible. I am a project manager for NABC, and as such, I am prone to wanting to see numbers and dollar signs together. So I just wanted to end my presentation with a small financial report on the success that this growers cooperative has provided. And let's not forget, the growers cooperative likely would not have been there without the support of NABC and some of that early organizational work. And NABC would not have been able to extend its full suite of services to Southwest Washington without the support of the Office of the Chehalis Basin. And the Office of the Chehalis Basin would not have supported NABC had they not recognized that inextricable link between the health and well-being of the agricultural community and how that relates to ambitious enhancement projects. So the total sales of the cooperative to date are right around $200,000. And of that, $60,000 in producer payments have been paid to the Food Hub participants and $100,500 to the grain participants. The Food Hub is projecting about a 70% increase in gross sales in 2021. They started operations in mid-August last year. That's a full 7 months of lost opportunity that they'll be able to take advantage of this year. And the grain project has signed agreements for almost 1,400 metric tons in 2021, relative to the 600 metric tons it delivered in 2020. So that concludes my presentation. I want to thank you for the opportunity and welcome questions and comments.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. If you want to try and turn yourself back on with your webcam, I think if we have me as the presenter, that might help reduce bandwidth issues as well. Just so folks can see you, if you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll go ahead and get you there. Reminder to everybody, raise your hand if you'd like to be unmuted and just ask your question directly. We will unmute you. Otherwise, you can type it in the questions box. And Stephanie will read out questions.
I'm not seeing any yet, just so you know. I'm not just being quiet.
That's okay. Well, I have one
Okay.
for you, Mike. I was wondering, with the work you've been sharing and your emphasis down there in Chehalis area, the work that's being done by NABC up here in the Puget Sound region, how are those priority work programs determined by your organization?
Is the question, how do we prioritize projects, or?
Yeah, how does that, I guess
Yeah,
I'm curious to know like how that shifts and changes. As conservation districts, we have our annual plans of work that we develop and we have public input on, and that can sometimes shift. but we do have like 5-year kind of long-term trajectory plans too. I was just curious, as your organization functions, how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. NABC is a private nonprofit, and as such, we can be pretty nimble. A lot of these projects are really, I mean, honestly, some of them are based on how loud and persistent the stakeholder is in terms of requesting help. We are a small shop. There are 6 project managers, and we also have some contractors in place. And so the criteria that individual project managers use is often, and I'm sure you're no stranger to the dynamic, but how big an effect can we have with how much input? So NABC is a cooperative development center and really gravitates towards growers that are willing to aggregate either through storage or marketing or pull resources. That's a dynamic that we pursue with great vigor. A majority of the individual clients we have are for individual grants. And that is often, frankly, on a first come, first served basis. If you deal a lot with grants, some individuals and entities will come in early. That's fantastic. It can take a full year to write a successful value-added producer grant. And so we maintain a waiting list and we maintain relationships, but we are very limited by in our capacity. And so do tend, again, to focus on partnerships, for example, like I talk about with WSU and EDC and Port of Chehalis, for example, and that expands our capacity significantly.
Yeah, I know when you guys, when you had that brief interlude there with your connectivity issues, I was just commending how NABC and, David Bauermeister and his team up here have been instrumental in helping, launch and support our Whidbey Island Grown cooperative that is now its own cooperative. Yeah. And it's been, a great partnership, with them really taking that lead and seeing that grow here on Whidbey Island. So very much value your organization as a partner as well. So thank you for explaining your process. It's appreciated. Sometimes I wonder with partners, like how, where do CDs engage and figure out like how we're going to help you meet the priority areas you need and how that links up with ours. So appreciate that.
Yep. And NABC is guided by a board of directors. Project managers do tend to have a significant amount of latitude in determining what they have the capacity for and what's a priority. And really, I think we all just try to fit them together with Whidbey to capitalize and leverage our experience with Puget Sound Food Hub, and even look further down the road for continued collaboration and networking. Now aggregated growers, but hopefully in the future, the aggregation of individual food hubs into a larger entity that can really start to address some food systems issues on a larger scale.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I've got some questions in the question box. The first one is from Dan Richardson. He asks, are there any good resources, any how-to books or the like that you could recommend to conservation districts potentially interested in exploring the ideas of local co-ops?
Yes. Cooperation Works is a really good place to start. And I do have a folder of information, but embarrassingly, I'd have to kind of open that up quickly and see where that information comes from. But there are excellent, I find in my experience, a lot of the really valuable, that sort of 101 information comes out of the University of Madison in Wisconsin. I think as a result of the number of dairies and other producers in the Midwest that use that cooperative model. And of course, NABC is a marvelous resource in terms of presentations, but we do not have a body of written work.
Awesome, thank you. If folks wanted to connect with you after this to get some of those resources, is it okay if we put your email address in the chat?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be
Okay,
delighted.
great, thank you. Okay, awesome. The next question is from Carrie or Kari. I apologize if I mispronounced that. She said, I appreciate the spirited stakeholder description. What is your most successful tactic in engaging farmers during the growing season?
So I'm a lifer in private enterprise. I was in production ag for 30 years, and I think I can answer that if only a little impolitely, very quickly. And that is, what have you got for me? You know, like, I understand you need information. I understand this project is important. I understand I fit into this. But what have you? I mean, what do you got? Do you have? I mean, do you have at least donuts and coffee at the local Grange? Or you know, one of the projects that I think is most successful, and I hear incredible positive comments about, are fish screens, right? And you, as a fish screen provider, you may not realize, to clean a suction on an irrigation system, you literally need to go walk into the river. And this is usually at, like, you know, dark 30. You're walking into the river and you're scrubbing a suction. Now, these fish screens mean that you don't have to do that anymore. That's an incredible gift, right? And so I think just trying to recognize, and I'm not suggesting that this needs to be quid pro quo, but recognizing that you know, agriculture is a business, and business people are busy, and they're beholden to profitability. So I think approaching slowly and gently, and having in mind, you know, what in conversation can I point out as a benefit, not to agriculture as a whole, but to this individual producer.
Great, and Kari says, thank you.
Yeah, I definitely have found in my own work, Mike, that those relationships that you develop with the farmers, getting to know them, building their trust, it goes a long way before asking something from them, because then they'll kind of have that innately better understanding of the shared vision, perhaps, that you are working towards. So I appreciate hearing that coming from other partners too. That's sentiment.
Yeah. You know, I think too, a profound and merited respect for their experience, and how their experience informs their decision making. The background information that a public agency comes to the table with may have been gained in a different manner than personal experience, and so those two things are different. I'm not. I would never discount either of those, but early acknowledgement of that, and mindful acknowledgement of the value of those experiences throughout the conversation and relationship, I think, are probably very important as well.
Yes, absolutely. Steph, do we have any more questions come up?
Not seeing any more, and no hands are raised. So just a reminder, if folks do want to raise their hands to ask a question, please go ahead and do so.
Yeah. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
I love that the title was the inextricable link between, you know, sustainable farm economy and flood reduction, and how they are all connected, right? Like supporting, you know, our farmers for the viability of their agricultural enterprises helps achieve these other aspects in our work in the environmental world. So thank you for sharing those connections in your area.
You are quite welcome, and, you know, right back at you. In terms of the conservation districts, in my experience, they're some of the most valuable liaisons between policy and large enhancement projects and individual stakeholders.
Well, we'll look forward to continued partnership then. All right. And Linda, do you have any final thoughts,
I
comments?
just want to thank you again, Mike, for your presentation. That was great. I really appreciate it, and I know others did as well. Thank you. I also
Thank
want to
you, and
highlight
thanks
that
for the opportunity.
yes.